a flower that is white and large, but small and fragile. A hand reaches out and plucks one of her petals. When this happens, her being, her essence, is divided into two. The hand meant no harm. It was simply life running its course through both parties, the hand and the petal. The hand let go, and as the petal fell, she was awoken. And she began to see the horror. From the location on the stem where she had been plucked, a fire began to blaze out. She watched as the fire began to slither down. The blistering red flame was flowing out almost like water, ready to consume her. In a moment, her world was turned upside down, but all she could fixate on was the flame that was getting closer each second. There was suddenly a surge of energy she felt, a survival instinct that if she didn't flee, she would perish. The flame coming out of her own stem was a fact she could not handle. Before she could open her mouth to scream in pain, she saw the horror. Pétalo cannot deal. Her system is completely overloaded. She couldn't be in her stem. She needed to find a new home. She feels absolute terror at the image of her stem being capable of such a monstrous creation. She is so horrified, she rejects all notion of it. And from sheer pain and panic, she wills the wind to pick her up and take her away. The wind takes her to the forest. She must try and find a new home. A part of her knows it doesn't make much sense that her stem rooted in the ground is her only real home. But that stem is broken. There is something wrong with her. She can't go back. If she wants to live, she must find a way. She must find a new way to be. A new place that will give her life. Her desire to belong is the only thing driving her. If she is to survive outside of her stem, she will need to find a home, but also needs to find a source of moisture. She thinks about all of the places she may be able to fit in. She could twirl in this wind like a twirly-whirly. She can find leaves to be consumed into the earth with. She can stick to a bat's wings. She can bury herself into the feathers of a finch. All ideas that would take miracles. But the truth was, she lacked the veins and the blood to flap like the thin skin of a bat's wings. She lacked the length to be a feather on a bird. She lacked a body to fly like a butterfly. She can dry up next to the fallen leaves if all else fails. They seem to be at peace. When she talks to them, they tell her how much they love being close to the earth. But these leaves seem ready to dry up. They have a deep connection. Pétalo was not yet ready to dry up. She wishes she could grow limbs taller than those that grew from the hand, that she could walk up to the hand and casually pluck a finger off, that a weird fire would replace their blood, that they could be left in complete and utter horror instead of her. But she was just a small petal on the floor. She was completely lost. She found a shady place under a great big leaf, and she laid. She cried herself to sleep, letting go completely into despair, and terrified that she would soon begin to dry up. In her dreams, she dreamt of a mother and a father that would hold her hand and walk with her. They watched her until she fell asleep. When she awoke, she was completely submerged under water. She had flooded the forest with her tears. Little animals were hiding up in trees. She looked all around her at the mess she had made. The tears created disaster. But at the same time, the ocean of tears kept her from drying up. She laid there for what felt like forever, as the tears evaporated painfully slow. Pétalo was mostly confused. No one had come after her for her mess. She was not okay yet, but she was still here. The neighbors from the nearby creek had begun to move in. Every now and then, Pétalo would get tickled by a tadpole swimming by. And she laid there in an empty state, looking up at the sun, wishing it would dry her up, wishing she didn't have all her tears keeping her moist. Then at least, if she were in the process of drying up, she would feel a sense of direction. Pétalo looks up at a family of squirrels running down the tree, checking to see if it was safe to gather more food. Their reserves were running low. She felt terrible. All she remembers was hearing a lot of splashing happening. A silver bass jumps up from the water, and Pétalo gets stuck on its back. Next thing she knows, she sees a huge object and is thrust into the sky. It's a bird that grabs her and Bass, and now they're all in the air. She's in the clouds. She can hardly believe it. The air was thin here. Pétalo was happy. Happy to be out of the marsh. Happy to be in movement again. Happy to be amongst so much life. So much excitement. Just as the bird began succeeding to cram Bass into its mouth, he failed, and Bass sprung out of Heron's mouth and began to free fall. The fall down would surely dry her up, and no one will know of her entire great adventure up in the sky. Everyone only knew a part. No one would hear of the whole. Not her wildflower sisters, not Butterfly, not Twirly Whirly, not Bird, not even Bass or Heron. The quick air was drying out Bass's scales until Pétalo became untethered from his back, and she was suspended for a moment, then began to also fall at a rate much slower. How many petals can say they were ever up so high? She falls and falls until she forgets what not falling feels like. And she surely begins to dry up. The edges of her begin to crack and become brittle. She begins to feel a scorching heat as the edges of her paper-thin body begin to dry up. She finally lands. She touches the surface and immediately recognizes where she is. It is the most joyful homecoming. She feels the warm embrace of her petals as they cave in and wrap all around her. She has landed on her stem. It is an old but natural feeling. After being away for so long, it's a feeling like no other. She cannot believe and is completely overjoyed. Her old stem and all of her petals, all looking perky and plump and full. They immediately embrace her on her return. The whole stem closes in and hugs her. The heat and love of their embrace melts them back together. She is one again. There is nothing left to do but to confront it, the flame. The gash of her missing petal feels hot, but wonderful. She looks down at herself and is shocked to learn that whatever had started flowing from her all that time ago is still flowing. And it's glowing and living real and true and raw and revealing and passionate and strong and lashing and ethereal. The little bugs down below her tell her they are grateful for her glow. There has been a little bug hub formed below her and a little bug city. Pétalo is back in her stem, but in a new way. Her job is done, her adventure had. She can melt into herself and be ready to live anew.